been paying attention, arguing that there's a long-planned agenda to fuse humanity with technology. And we are extremely lucky enough today to have David here with us on the show. David, welcome to Redacted for the first time.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure. I've been watching Redacted quite a lot. I'm very impressed.
Well, I say that means a lot coming from you because I had a bit of a blind spot in not knowing your deep history and your lectures and your education. I mean, heck, selling out stadiums, teaching people about this, and trying to bring people to this awakening. So it's quite an honor to have you here, and I hope that this interview serves a couple of purposes. But number one, I want you to be broadcast to the world. I want people to wake up to your teachings in a much broader way. Obviously, the internet has not been kind to you. They've banned you, they've blocked you, they've censored you, they've tried to hide you. So I'm hoping that people will share this interview far and wide, and hopefully this can lead to some sort of a new awakening, because I think we desperately need it. So it's a real pleasure to have you here. So I guess let me just start with the film. And the question is this: the film is basically daring all of us to ask, are we heading into a future where you don't just use technology, you merge with it? We've heard that from like Elon Musk and these other AI billionaires, where the Internet of Things, just sort of monitoring the humidity in your house, forget that. Now it turns into like the Internet of Humans. Like your body is now a platform. Your mind is a battleground, like the battle for your mind. The CIA says internally that if they can know your thoughts, that's the ultimate goal. If the CIA can know your human thoughts, that's the ultimate goal. So is your biology really the access point here? Is that the point?
Whoa, that's a massive question. I could sit here and talk for the next 3 or 4 hours on that subject alone, but I won't. The point is, I always find that we are shielded purposely from what's happening by the illusion of complexity. So if you think things are terribly complex and you don't see them in their simple foundation, then a lot of people go, I don't understand it, mate. I don't understand it. I can't get my head around all that. And yet it's all very simple. It's like you see these scientists and these physicists with massive blackboards with codes and symbols and what have you all over the blackboard, and people look at that and go, oh dear, what's on the telly? But actually behind all that, it's dead simple, the situation we're in. If you are the few, and compared with the apparently 8 billion people, we're talking a few in full knowledge of what they're doing. If you are a few, then you have to control the many. Now, mathematically, you would think that was impossible and complex, but the foundation of it is very actually simple. If you're faced with a billions of people, and if they're united and realized that there is a common threat and it's you, then it's over. It's over. Game of House of Cards is down. So what you need to do is make sure they don't unite. Number one, you have to get them to believe in something rigidly and unquestioningly. It could be a religious belief, it could be a political belief, cultural belief, whatever. But they must believe it rigidly, because that immediately puts their mind in a box. Because if you are a certain religious belief, then you are not going to go out into the infinity of possibility, because if you do, your religious belief is in trouble. So, and not least, religions tend to frighten people into going there. Ooh, that's the devil, that's the occult. And so you stay in your box, and it's a narrative. And as I've said many times, this global cult that I talk about, this global network of secret societies with a a central mission control driving it. They don't care what you believe, so long as you believe it rigidly and without question, because then you are in a box of some sort and not going there. And then that creates a situation where it's perfection for divide and rule, because now you have all these different political and religious cultural belief systems, which you can then play off against each other to divide and rule. So now you've got your target population, because I've heard all the time since I started this 36 years ago, it's impossible for a few to control the world. Well, clearly it's not. Look around. But how do they do it? That's the question. So now you've got these rigid belief systems and you're playing them off against each other. Now they're so busy fighting each other that they're not looking up and seeing actually that the strings attached to all of them are held by the same hand. And the other thing that leads me to answering your question is a simple question. Who are we really? Who are we? How seldom you hear this question. Who am I? Am I this body? What is this reality that I'm interacting with? Because once you realize the situation we're in, which is that we are consciousness, eternal, infinite awareness, formless consciousness, having a brief experience through a form, a body, a vehicle called human. We are not human. We have to, however, believe we are in some form for the few to control the many. Because once you believe that what you are is human, you are immediately pulled into the material world of extraordinary levels of limitation, and I can't, and it's not possible,
and chaos.
Yeah. So what you are looking for to control the many when you are the few is control of their perception and control of their self-identity. Once you've got those two things, you got them. It's over until people wake up from it. And we are looking at the control of perception up to this point has been through control of information. This is what censorship's all about. We form our perceptions of reality and our perceptions of self-identity overwhelmingly from the information that we receive. Anything from the 10 o'clock news to a Facebook post to a personal experience. From that information, we form our perceptions. Now, our perceptions come from information received, and our perceptions dictate behavior. We behave as we do because we perceive as we do. So if you want to control behavior, and if you're the few wanting to control the many, that's exactly what you want. If you want to control behavior, you must control perception. And if you control perception, you must control information. So censorship is obviously not for a laugh and a bit of fun. It's essential, because if you have people hearing only your narrative, or as near to only your narrative as you can get away with, then there's a very, very good chance that they are going to perceive, therefore behave, according to your narrative. So if you take the COVID hoax for a start, that was a wonderful microcosm of what I'm talking about. You had billions of people who went under house arrest, in effect, who put little masks on and rolled up their sleeve and had this fake COVID vaccine, not even a vaccine under previous criteria, because they believed that there was a deadly virus, and doing what authority told them was their protection from it, or people who didn't want to do what they were told to do, but feared the consequences of not doing so. And those two groups meant that a tiny few people, actually, if you break it down, a tiny few people at the top of the World Health Organization, if you bring it down to where it was all coming from, a Rockefeller organization, by the way, created in 1948 with help from Rothschilds. And so billions of people did all that they did during COVID, you know, walking away from people when you're walking down the street, even if you were walking down the street, which was rare at the time. They did it because a tiny few people were putting out the narrative that this is the only way to protect yourself. It was a wonderful example of how, if you control perception, you control behavior, you basically control the world in its totality, really. And so up to this point, they've had to control perception by controlling information. This is where the mainstream media for years, of course, was putting out the narrative. And you know,
and they worked in lockstep with these World Health Organization schleps, you know, and pushing out this narrative, and all across, whether it was CNBC or CNN or any of it, they worked in lockstep to control that information. And, you know, our channel, I think you were banned, we were banned across YouTube for even reading Pfizer's own documents on the air. They said it was medical misinformation, and they took us off the air. So they were really controlling everything from Google, YouTube to CNN to all of it as part of this information war.
And it shows how powerful control of perception is. It's everything. You control people through that. And as we go along, maybe we could get into the structure through which they do it, because again, the structure is relatively simple, but appears to be impossible if you see it only at the level of complexity. And how always.
Yeah, please, take me through that mechanism, because I think maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think what you're saying is up to now, it's been the control of information.
Yeah,
but we're moving beyond that into this AI fusing. Is that where we're going next?
Yeah, this is where I was just going with this. So up to this point, as you say, it's information control. Where they want to go to complete the job, really, of complete perceptual control, is to connect humans to artificial intelligence via what people like the Google executive Ray Kurzweil calls the cloud. And from that, human perception will no longer come from human thought and human emotional response. It will come direct. So no more even do you have to control information then. You have to just deliver to people the thoughts you want them to have. And what we've had on one side is the hard sell of this from people like Klaus Schwab when he was at the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, Ray Kurzweil, many others, where they're telling us that when we fuse with artificial intelligence, and people like Ray Kurzweil, that's his book up there, the yellow book, he's claims to be the world expert on artificial intelligence and where it's going. He's talking, and he did this some years ago now, about 2030 being the target year for when this big transformation of AI human fusion starts to happen big time. It's already happening, in fact. So you've got the hard sell, and what the hard sell says is, if we fuse with artificial intelligence, we'll be gods, we'll be supermen and super women. Now, there are and have all along been a group of people a large group of people actually, who, not the majority, but a large group of people that were saying, "Hold on a minute, I'm not happy with this. I don't like the sound of that, and I'm pushing back on that." And so the alternative media for a long time was saying, "Oh, this transhumanism. Oh, they want ultimate control of us through transhumanism and AI and all that stuff." And then along comes Elon Musk, you see, and I've been tracking Elon Musk for years and years, long before he bought Twitter, now X, because he was ticking the boxes of this agenda for humanity that I've been uncovering for a long time. So I was very interested in him. And so when he was allowed to buy Twitter X, I knew it was a scam. The question was, what form of scam does it take? Well, it didn't take long to find that out on many levels. First of all, Elon Musk positioned himself, because this global cult plays the long game, as an AI skeptic. AI could be the end of humanity. Oh, I'm very worried.
And right. And for people that don't remember that, he was, when we were hearing about ChatGPT and he hadn't yet rolled out Grok, he was out there in speeches and posts warning all of us about how scary and how it's going to run away and we will lose to it, and we need to be very cautious about it. He was saying that in the early days of, before the previous election, he was saying that quite regularly.
That was positioning himself, because you've only got to look at what's happened since to see that that's the case. So he then was facing criticism from many in the alternative media. This guy's pushing transhumanism or whatever, and he's not our friend. And then he bought Twitter X, or was allowed to buy it, because the so-called deep state owned it before, quite demonstrably. And Musk, when he bought it, put out these Twitter files saying, look, here's the proof that the deep state owned Twitter before I bought it. Yeah, okay, so the deep state had control, we all know that, you and me and many others, of what was posted and not posted on Twitter, right? Yeah, absolutely. So why did they sell it to you then? Why did they sell it to you as self-proclaimed, and it is self-proclaimed, not true, free speech absolutist? Because it was a scam. And what I saw was, almost from the moment he bought Twitter, called it X, and started letting people back, the criticism of Musk from so much of the alternative media that criticized him before just disappeared, because now he's one of us. And he's able to get away with loads and loads of things that he wouldn't have done without owning Twitter X. And then you saw him start to move into bed, basically, with Trump after Trump's alleged assassination attempt. Within an hour, he was supporting Trump, and all the other kind of AI oligarchs came in. And what you have now is two things. You've got Trump as the president. And as I said in his election campaign, this guy is going to tell you what you want to hear. When he gets in, he's going to do things that you didn't think he was going to do, and that he said he wouldn't do. But crucially, he is going to facilitate the mad rush to this AI human fusion and the AI digital control of society. And it took 2 days after his inauguration the second time to wheel into the Oval Office Larry Ellison, Sam Altman, and some other guy, to announce this up to $500 billion AI project. I think they called it Stargate, with data centers, etc., which are essential to this AI control system. And since he's gone on and on and on, pushing this whole AI agenda. And what you've got around Trump is this: they've circled the wagons around him. There's Musk, there's Peter Thiel of Palantir, who's getting contracts not just from Trump, but from other countries around the world to advance this AI control system and surveillance system. You've got Mark Andreessen, you've got David Sachs, who Trump made his AI crypto czar. And you've got all these other people that are around him, these billionaires that are pushing this agenda. So what you've got is Trump, basically, he's been brought in to be a wrecking ball to the system that we've had up to this point in my lifetime. And people are saying, who support Trump, oh yeah, he's destroying the deep state, he's destroying the globalist system. Well, no, he's not. You see, there's a technique called creative destruction. And what that is you're starting here at A and you want to go to Z, and you're going in stages towards your ultimate goal, which is AI human fusion and total AI digital control. And on the journey to that, you have different phases. So what creative destruction is when a phase has served you, served your interest, but you need to go to the next phase, then creative destruction destroys the previous phase, the previous status quo. So if you look over the 20th century to now, the First World War destroyed the status quo. And the world was not the same in 1918 as it was in 1914. You then had not just the Great Depression in America, but a Great Depression all around the world. And my father was caught in that. And that basically was dismantling the economic system of that time. And then you had the Second World War. That's another creative destruction, which takes it even further on. So the world at the end of the Second World War was absolutely nothing like it was at the start of the First World War. And you had the Bretton Woods Agreement, you had the introduction of the IMF, the World Bank, and the United Nations, and a massive move to the centralization of global power. And from the end of the Second World War, and I was born in 1952, only 7 years after that, to pretty much recently, that system has been the one that's been the system of the world in all its facets and forms. What Trump is doing now, because the next stage is moving rapidly into AI human digital control, that status quo we've had since the Second World War has to go. Because if it doesn't, like all status quos, if the status quo stays and doesn't move, you can't replace it with anything. So you've got to demolish it. And this is creative destruction. And so that's what Trump's been put in there to do, to demolish the system, the current system, in all its forms again, so it can be replaced by this next phase. And around him are the architects of the next phase, which are the AI billionaire oligarchs. And I said, two things, and one was all that. But the other second thing, in relation to Musk buying Twitter X, is look at what it's become. I don't follow Elon Musk, but my X feed it's like machine gun fire. Right. I mean, the posts under Musk's name are just incessant. And two things are the basis of them. One, dividing and ruling the population by winding one part of the population up constantly, support for Trump. And the other one is that X has now become, could be the end of humanity, X has now become a propaganda, incessant propaganda arm for pushing the AI system. And he's pushing it all the time. He does it through Grok and all that stuff. But what he's doing is pushing this system. Because what he says, this is the soft sell as opposed to the hard sell. What Musk said was, yeah, it could be the end of humanity, but, it's inevitable. That's a massive mind control psyop, that. Because once you're convinced that something is inevitable, you stop trying to stop it and you start trying to mitigate its impact. So you're already weakening your response because you think it's inevitable. And so he's saying, because it's inevitable that AI will become more intelligent than humans, if we don't fuse humans with artificial intelligence, then humans will die out. And so you've got the hard sell outcome, human AI fusion. You got the soft sell outcome, human AI fusion. They're taking you to the same point using different rhetoric and different words. And, Elon Musk is the most blatant frontman in his arena of this global cult that I'm talking about. And they're all frontmen, they're all gophers. I mean, if you see them on public display, they're not running the show, they're serving the show. Right. That's the difference.
Are there forces pushing back against this that you've seen? Obviously, since your awakening in the early 90s and what you've tapped into, are there forces pushing back saying we're not going to allow this to happen?
Well, there are, but again, let's look at what the situation is and why. Okay, on one level, why do they want human AI fusion? Because they can then dictate what humans think. Okay, but there's another reason they want that. It's not just control in the sense of whatever we tell them to think, they'll think. There's that level of control, and that's part of it. But there's another level. I said earlier that the true I, the infinite I, is consciousness. This is a vehicle for consciousness to experience this reality. I can pick those glasses up because I have an external vehicle, if you like, that is resonating within the frequency band of this human reality. Therefore, I can pick them up. My consciousness, your consciousness, our consciousness can't pick them up because the consciousness is operating on such a high frequency. It's like two radio stations sharing the same space, but not interfering with each other. You couldn't pick them up. So we have these vehicles to interact with this reality, this actually tiny reality in truth. And what we are is consciousness. And there's a massive difference between consciousness caught in the human trap of constant perceptual control and expanded human awareness that taps into the greater reality, the greater infinity of reality beyond this human band of frequency. The nightmare for this global cult is that people awaken and tap in to that level of awareness. Now, what
Right.
we call awakening, this is a word that's thrown around all the time now. People are awakening, people are waking up. What does that mean? What does waking up mean? It means that you are moving out of the myopia of seeing the world the way you're told to see it, and you are opening your mind, literally opening your mind, and tapping in to a more expanded level of insight, awareness, knowledge, knowing, all these things. And that's awakening, because people, watching this show will know, if they've been through this process. They ask questions that I get asked all the time. I can see it now. Why couldn't I see it before? It's obvious, because you were here before and now you're here. Now, stopping that awakening process is absolutely crucial, because without it, the house of cards is all over the floor. And so you've had, for instance, the control of science, which is just another religion with its holy books of scientific orthodoxy. And if you step out of the orthodoxy, you're a pseudo-scientist or crazy. Just as if you step out of the limits of a religion, you're a blasphemer. It's the same process, same mentality. And what science has been used for is to hold people in a myopia of perception of self and reality. And so you have to be in that limitation of perception of reality and self-identity, so you can be controlled. Because once you start to expand your awareness into these greater levels of insight, of knowledge, of knowing, you become increasingly uncontrollable. Because people say, "Oh, this is what's happening." Authority says, "This is what happened. Is what's happening. This is why you must do this. You must do that." From that point of view, "Oh, yes, sir. No, sir. You must know better than me." From that point of view, you're having a bloody laugh, mate. I ain't doing that. I can see what you're doing. So the idea is we must be held. I mentioned earlier about these belief systems that hold people in limitations of potential perception. But what AI human fusion is all about is so dictating the perceptions of people directly from AI, that once that's in place, we no longer ask questions like, "Who am I? Who's running the world? To what end? What is this reality?" We won't ask questions like that, because AI will not be asking them, and that will be doing our thinking for us. This is where it's going. And and what's happening is, Trump's perfect for them as a diversion. Because you wake up in the morning, you go on the internet or whatever, and you're thinking, what's he bloody done now? There's so many things going on, and people are looking.
Greenland National Guard in Minnesota. Yeah, it's nonstop. It's a machine gun.
Machine gun fire, yeah. Of what? Perceptual attention hijacking. And all the time behind this smoke screen, what's Trump done now? Oh, he's going for Greenland. You can't go for Greenland. That's not right. What about the Europeans? What do they say about? Ooh. And the AI oligarch agenda pushing head towards this AI human fusion, AI control system agenda goes on and on behind that smokescreen.
I want to ask you about the mechanics of how this AI fusion happens in a second. But first, I just want to share a little anecdote, because it came into my brain as you were talking about this idea of vision and myopia. You're blocked here. Lately, I've been on a journey to stop using these. Just a few years ago, it just suddenly, boom, it went. And I said, there's got to be a natural way. So I've started to go down a rabbit hole I've discovered a couple of doctors, ophthalmologists, who've said, wait a minute, so as an ophthalmologist, my whole life now is every year you come to see me and I give you a worse and worse prescription until you die? That doesn't seem right. And I discovered this doctor who wrote a book in the 1980s, and he would bring thousands of people to a large arena. And he said, I want you to throw away your glasses. And it wasn't just the mechanics of the glasses. It was really, I want you to ask yourself, what are you seeing? Like, how are your eyes really working? And it sounds a little metaphysical to someone who just wants like their eyes healed, but it's exactly what you're talking about. What are you really seeing? And from that, thousands of people were able to say, I don't need my glasses anymore, because now I'm able to understand the mechanics of my eyes and what I'm artificially putting these things on a regular basis, and it's limiting what I'm doing. And I just thought, it just popped in my brain because I've been on this journey lately, and it's just a little piece of it, for someone who maybe is not tapped into the vast array of awareness that you have. Maybe it's just that little gateway drug. It's just that little gateway to start questioning what you're seeing. Who am I? How are my eyes actually working? Am I seeing light? Am I seeing shapes? Am I seeing colors when I just take a walk with the dog? Anyway, I just wanted to share that because...
Yeah, but that's a very important point you've raised here, because, of all the things that are suppressed to keep people under control, the biggest one, the most important one, and the one that the alternative media very, very rarely, if ever, talks about, is the nature of reality itself. What is this reality that we're experiencing? And what I do, what I've always done since I started out consciously on this road in 1990, is know that whatever you think you know, there's always more to know. If any statement can be made that is unquestionable and unchallengeable, it is that whatever we know, there's always more to know in terms of humanity, vast beyond belief, more to know. So I started out in the early 1990s uncovering this global cult. Seems a long time ago now, and how it works. And I hope we can get into that at some point, and because the structure's very simple and very instructive if people know how it works.
Well, and I should say for our audience who's new to David Icke and doesn't know, as you've written in your books, and it was eye-opening for me to hear your story. 1990 was when you worked in television. You were a broadcaster like I was. I used to work at Fox News back in the day. So you were in the mainstream media. You were a footballer, a very good footballer, and you had this awakening in 1990 that changed everything. So maybe you could just tell our audience a little bit about that as you talk about the structure that you uncovered.
Yeah, well, that's a long story, but I'll try to shorten it. Throughout 1989, I had this feeling that whenever I was alone, I wasn't alone. There was some presence there, which was kind of all new to me. I hadn't gone into those areas before. And it got more and more powerful through 1989 when I was working for the BBC and etc. And I eventually ended up, I'd just done a program for the BBC, and I went to a hotel just down from the BBC Television Centre in London called the Kensington Hilton, still there. And I sat in this hotel room on my own that night, and the presence was so powerful and tangible that I said out into the room, if there's something there, would you please contact me, because you're driving me up the bloody wall. Then a few days later, I'm at home, And Gareth, who's now a big strapping guy, of course, he was a little boy at the time, and my son, and we were going down to a cafe on the seafront next to a railway station. And that cafe next to it had a newsagent shop, sold newspapers and things for the tourists. It was a seaside place. And when we got there, a railway guy came up to me and started talking to me about football. There was a big game on that day, I remember. And then I realized that Gareth was not here anymore, but I knew where he would be. He'd be in the shop, looking at the steam train books. We like steam trains. And so I walk in, and we were going to this cafe, but it was packed. So I said to Gareth, "Come on, mate, we'll go up the town and get some lunch there." At that point, the atmosphere around me changed, the energy around me changed, and I now know the electromagnetic field changed, but that was all bewildering to me at the time. And then I heard, it wasn't a voice, it was like a very strong thought form that said, "Go and look at the books on the far side." What? And there was this energy coming through me, and it's like my feet were like being pulled to the ground like magnets. And so I walked across to these books. Now I knew what books this newsagent sold. They were romantic novels of no interest to me. And I go in there and I look, and there are all the romantic novels as I expected. But in there was another book, and it was by a professional psychic lady called Betty Shine, called Mind to Mind. So I pick it up and I turn it up and I read the blurb, and I saw the word psychic, and I thought, whoa, I wonder if this lady would pick up what's been happening to me for the last year with this bloody presence I keep feeling. So I read the book in 24 hours, went to see her eventually, and well, pretty soon actually. And first two times I went, what I said to her is, look, I've got rheumatoid arthritis, which finished my football career. Maybe your Reiki hands-on healing stuff would maybe help, because she did that as well. But that wasn't the reason I went. I went to see if she would pick it up, anything up that was going on around me, because I wasn't going to give her any leads and say, well, this is happening to me, what do you think? So I just kept stum on all of it. And the first two times we went, we had a nice chat about reality and stuff. And then the third time I went, and the fourth time I went, well, it changed my life, really. On the third time, I'm on this medical type bench, and she's doing the hands-on healing just next to my left knee. And suddenly I felt so tangibly like a spider's web on my face. And what struck me was I'd read in her book that sometimes when other dimensions of reality are trying to lock into you, you sometimes feel like a spider's web on your face. Now, again, what I was feeling was an electromagnetic field. It's the same principle as when you're in a stadium full of excited people, the hairs on your neck stand up. It's that electromagnetism. So I said nothing to this lady, except, my bum was slipping further down the bench, thinking, what's going on here, Icke? And about 15 seconds later, after this happened, never said a word to her, she launches her head back and says, my God, this is powerful. I've got to close my eyes for this one. She then proceeds to tell me, she said, they're telling me to tell you this. You're going to go out on a world stage and reveal great secrets. And now I'm a television sports presenter with the BBC. Are you having a laugh?
Right.
And lots of other things. One man cannot change the world, but one man can communicate the message that can change the world, and all that stuff. I remember that was one line. And your human level is saying, you're having a laugh, lady. But something else was saying, go for it. go with this, go with this. So as things turned out, it was exactly the way that it's played out. One of the things that I was told was, you're going to be led to knowledge. What knowledge? And at other times, we will put knowledge directly into your mind, and you'll think, where has that come from? Now, for about 2 years after that, because what happened after that meeting is my life transformed, and it became this synchronistic, unbelievably synchronistic, constant experience of being led to information. First of all, it was the nature of this cult, for instance. Then later it moved into the wider picture I'm sure we can get into. And eventually out of this dimension even. But the first 2 years, the synchronicity of coming across this information through personal experience, books, documents, people, whatever. Basically, I looked at the information and then I concluded what to make of it. After about 2 years, in line with what came through Betty Shine, it changed. And I would know what the situation is. And then the information, names, dates, places, would follow to confirm the initial intuitive feeling of what was happening. And that's gone on ever since. And like I say, it's gone in stages, but the stages go together, which is why I spend all my life basically working and researching and writing, because, first of all, it was this level of the manipulation, the global cult, secret societies, all that stuff. Then it was the non-human level. Then it was the fact that we live in a simulated reality created by this non-human level. And this is basically like a massive virtual reality game. And it's gone on ever since, including the whole afterlife stuff as well. And it's gone in stages, but each stage doesn't stop and another one starts. They keep going. And so you're kind of working across a vast spectrum of information and fitting it together. And that's how it all came about. And
she was right. And she was right. I mean,
that's how
Wembley Arena with thousands of people coming to see you speak. So you went from, wait a minute, I'm on the BBC, I'm a sports presenter. How the hell am I going to start speaking about this? But you did, as in many ways, as like a conduit, it seems.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something else as well, very important, is that when I first went public with all this and what was happening to me, and to be honest, I didn't know what was happening to me. I mean, another part of the story is that in early 1991, this is 1990, March 1990, I saw Betty Shine. And then I started writing a book called Truth Vibrations, which came out the following year, about what was happening to me. Not that I really understood it at the time. And then I towards the end of 1990, I had this feeling I needed to go to Peru. So I'm seeing Peru everywhere suddenly. Like I'd walk past a travel agent shop, and there would be a display for Peruvian holidays and stuff. And I'd turn on the telly, and it was a documentary about Peru. It's going, what's all this about Peru? Anyway, purely on intuition, I get on a plane to Peru, and some fantastic things happened. But it culminated with me being on a hill near Lake Titicaca, near a place called Puno. This is in very early 1991, and it's a long story, but I end up on this hill, and it was a bit like the newsagent shop, but massively more extreme. This energy hit me going in the top of my head through to my feet and going the other way back again. And it was like being plugged into the mains, because my body eventually is shaking with this stuff. And when it started, I had, as like I say, it's not a voice, it's like a thought form goes through your head. And it said, "It will be over when you feel the rain." Now I'm standing under a piercing Peruvian sun and a clear blue sky. It will be over when you feel the rain. So you think, this is insane. But anyway, it went on. And I noticed that, when you drive in a car and you lose the last 2 miles, your subconscious has been driving the car, thank goodness. And you've been, away with the fairies. Well, it was like that. This energy was going through me, and I'm shaking. And again, my feet are being pulled to the ground like magnets. And you would go into wherever, and then suddenly you'd come back to your conscious mind. And on one of those occasions, this lasted about 45 minutes to an hour. I noticed that the far distant mountains is right out in the countryside near a place called Siustani, an old Inca site. I noticed that there was a light gray mist over the mountains, and it got darker, and I thought, it's bloody raining. And, if I put what happened next into a movie, they'd say, you're having us on, mate. What are you talking about? It's a bit far-fetched, to say the least, mate, but it happened. What I watched was this rainstorm come out of the mountains across the land towards me. And people talk about whether people talk about a front. Well, this was a front. This was a straight line of stair rod bloody rain. And it came towards me. By this time, I'm just trying to hold on with the energy. And then the rain hit me. I was soaked immediately because it was so torrential. And the energy stopped. And that night I couldn't sleep because the energy was coming out, still coming out of my feet, my hands. And things dramatically changed after that. I came back to England and started talking about some of the things that were happening to me and some of the things that I was experiencing. And I went through the most historic levels of ridicule. I mean, I literally couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at. Going to a bar, forget it, don't even go there. But what that did, it was extreme ridicule. I mean, comedians only had to say my name to get a laugh. They didn't need a joke. I was the joke. But what it did was free me of the prison that most people live in, which has stayed with me ever since. And that's the fear of what other people think. See, most people live in that prison, and what they're trying to do is edit, censor what they say and what they say they believe to stay within the Overton window of acceptability. Because if you go beyond it, you're mad. He's going strange. He ought to see a psychiatrist. I was subject to such extreme ridicule everywhere that you either gave up and just disappeared from view, or you came out and said, I am me, I am free. I'm not asking you to believe any of this stuff. I still am not. I'm saying this is what is happening to me. And what I'm saying today is this is what I've researched over 36 years. Make of it what you will. And so that freed me of this fear of what other people think of me. I don't go through mental gymnastics saying how do I put this in a way they won't think I'm crazy? Or what do I leave out so they won't think I'm crazy? I don't think like that. I think, well, the way I work is I hear something or I research something, and maybe it's an initial thing, like there's a non-human force manipulating human society, which there is, and I won't then come out and say, oh yeah, this is what's happening. I'll put it on the back burner and let it simmer, and I wait to see if other information comes in. And there comes a point where so much information has been compiled from so many different sources that it crosses your line to, this is going on. And at that point, you don't think, oh yeah, but if I say it, what they're going to think of me. You don't think about that. That left me behind big time in 1991. You just say what you think. You say what you think the situation is, write what you think the situation is, and say this is why I think, this is the evidence to support it. But you don't censor yourself on the basis of what people will think of you, and that was absolutely crucial. And I can't tell you the freedom that gives you, that you open your mouth and you say what you think rather than what you think other people would like you to think. It's an incredible freedom, which has allowed me to do what I've done and research what I have and say what I have. Because otherwise you would say, oh, I'm not talking about reptilians. Are you kidding? No chance. What are they going to think of me? I don't care.
You know, I had a similar conversation with my daughter recently. She's 13 years old, and she's in that teenage world where she's worried that if, daddy pulls up to her dance class and have some music turned up a little loudly, she'll get embarrassed in front of other people. And I said, it's a nice place to arrive at when you don't care what other people think of you. Saying that, I feel like I believe that, but I'm certainly not at your level of that. And I think that's, in many ways, it's like a superpower. It almost, it sounds like a superpower. I'm in my late 40s now, 49. I don't feel the way that I felt in my 20s, where I worried about what other people think of me. I still feel a nudge from time to time. Oh, I maybe shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't talk about that because of what people might think. But in the past year on our show, I've just let the floodgates open, and it feels incredibly freeing to be able to talk about. We've talked openly about reptilians on our show. To be able to talk about the genocide in Gaza openly, freely. To talk about the evil people that are running our country openly and freely, and it is in many ways a superpower. When you started understanding the cult, because you talked about this was one of the first pieces after your 1990 experience, you started to see this cult and the pieces of it. Did it come to you like in a particular vision, and then this other pieces of information started flowing to you?
Well, the first 2 years, as I said earlier, I was following the synchronicity of life and gathering information and then concluding. And by then, I'd pretty much seen that the people that were apparently running the world, like presidents and prime ministers and almost anyone in the public eye, were just gophers for something much deeper. And what it is when you constantly know that whatever you know, there's always more to know, you're constantly seeking what it is you don't know. What I've seen with so much of the alternative media, especially a lot of mainstreamers who've come in since COVID, is you get so far, and you go from your little myopic prison, seeing the world in a certain way, and you go, there's a conspiracy going on, and it's political, and it's corporate, and it's banking. Stop. And that's where so much of the alternative media is. It's become an eddy going round and round while the river of knowledge flows past it. And when you are constantly saying, with some humility, whatever I know, there's more to know. You're constantly seeking what it is you don't know. And the synchronicity of my life also has driven me deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole. So from the early 1990s, when I was putting this global cult structure together, which we can talk about, I then asked the question, first of all, when did this start then? Because it was obvious from the structure I'd put together that it wasn't 5 years ago or even 50 years ago. This goes back, way back. So you start charting it back, and you get pretty comfortably back to ancient Rome and Egypt and Babylon and Sumer and all these Middle Eastern regions from which the major religions came out of. And you then realize that people have been born, they've played a part in advancing this agenda, which is for the constant centralization of power. We were in tribes once, and the people in the tribe were deciding what happened in the tribe, and then loads of tribes were brought together to form a nation. Now a few people at the center of the nation are dictating to all the former tribes, and now we've got the European Union and these other groupings of countries whereby a tiny few people at the center are now dictating to whole vast regions of the world. And so this centralization of power has gone on and on. But people were being born, they were playing a part in advancing this agenda within this cult. The cult was expanding and expanding its reach until it was eventually global. And they were then dying, and other people would take over. So you were seeing this process. So the next question is, so there has to be some common force that's been overseeing all of this, and that's been orchestrating all this. Because
Right.
you're born, you play a part, you die, someone else born plays a part. There's got to be some orchestration, because if people are being born and they know that although they're playing a part in advancing this cult agenda, they ain't going to be here, well, in theory, to see it reach fruition. I mean, what's going on? There has to be another force. And this was the point from the mid-1990s, when I first came to the United States to talk on these subjects, to nobody, by the way. I had this strange experience of 12 days, 12 times within 15 days, when I was traveling around America, talking to nobody. People came up to me, 12 different people, and told me the same story, that they'd seen someone who appeared to be human, then change shapeshift into a reptilian form, and then go back again. And again, back burner, you go, the one thing you don't do, unless you're in a box, and unless you've, from previous research, you know it's nonsense, you don't dismiss it. Nor do you stand up and say, this is what's going on. You put it on the back burner and you wait to see if any other information will come. Because, of course, when you first hear this stuff, it's like, what?
Right.
And information kept coming and coming and coming. And eventually it crossed the line where I thought, this is happening, this is real. And so you then go to the next level.
And this is pre-internet.
Yeah,
in many ways.
Well, yeah,
so you're getting this information not through emails and direct messages, but from people independently,
directly,
which is even more remarkable.
In different places. Places. Yeah. So suddenly you're starting to build a structure, because it was clear that these this non-human force was not operating in this or from this dimension. It's operating in another dimension of reality. And that's why it's so important, A, to understand reality, and B, to stop people, if you're the cult, understanding reality. So I'm sitting here, for instance, and I am within a certain band of frequency. And that band of frequency is all I can see. It's something I've said that all children should be told at the first time point that they could grasp it. But when they look through their eyes, they're not seeing everything in the space that they're looking at. What they're seeing is a tiny band of frequency, and it's bloody tiny. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically our experience reality, is 0.005% of what exists in terms of energy in all its forms in this so-called universe. Some say it's a bit more, but whichever, it's tiny. Visible light, which is the only band of frequency that we can see, everything that we see and I'm looking at now is within visible light, is a smear of the 0.005% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So humans are basically blind. Now, the reason it's so important for people to know this at the earliest age is because it changes everything. Now, suddenly, when people say, well, you say these non-humans, why can't I see them? Well, because they don't operate with invisible light. And if they do enter visible light and leave visible light, you dismiss the idea that that could possibly happen. Because when people say, I saw this UFO and it came out of nowhere and then disappeared into nowhere, or I saw this this entity appear out of nowhere at the end of the bed and then it disappeared. Of course, the normal, the Overton window of normal, very fiercely policed, says that's impossible. That can't happen. Oh, it can. And it's very easy to explain it. When something is in another dimension of reality, it's vibrating on a different frequency that's not within visible light. You can't see it. When it enters visible light, because it's changing its frequency, it appears to any observer to have come out of nowhere. When it goes back to its dimension of reality, increases its frequency, it appears to disappear out of nowhere, but it's not appeared and it's not disappeared. It's entered your range of vision, which is absolutely bloody tiny. So I'm sitting here like you're sitting there, and in the space that I'm sitting in, it's another story, space, is infinity. All the other dimensions of reality are all in the space that we're sitting in. But on the same basis of radio and television stations on the analog system being on different wavelengths, sharing the same space, but they don't interfere with each other unless they're very close on the dial. That's how all these different wavelengths of realities going out into infinity can exist in the same space without us being aware of them. So if you get a radio and you tune it to radio A, you get radio A. You then move the dial and you get radio B. But radio A has not stopped broadcasting because you've moved the dial from it. It's still broadcasting, but you're not aware of it anymore. This is how reality kind of works. And therefore, these entities that are manipulating human society through this cult operate in the unseen. Unseen to what? The visual acuity of humanity. And if we don't understand that, then people are going to dismiss what is happening because they can't understand how it could happen. and it's one of the things I've said, one of the greatest forms of mind control is squeezing our sense of the possible. Because if you do that, it means that people will dismiss things that are actually happening because they can't understand how they can happen. If you even look at mainstream science, how often does it dismiss the so-called paranormal because it within its context of reality, it doesn't understand how paranormal is possible when it's perfectly explainable. So these entities are operating in another dimension of reality, which is very close to this one, but it's outside of the normal human range of sight. Some psychic sight can go beyond that and can see some of these things, but mostly they can't. And the structure started to appear to me from the mid-1990s that this global cult was actually manipulating human society within the band of frequency of human society on behalf of this non-human force operating in another dimension of reality, what's known as the astral dimension. And then as the synchronicity went on, and you keep asking the question, okay, so what don't I know? What then came next, just after the turn of the millennium, although I'd been thinking about this for years before, came the understanding through various and many sources and pieces of information that I write about in the books, came the fact that this is a simulated reality. And what has happened basically is that this non-human force has created a fake simulated reality through which it can control human perception at the very base level of the perception of what we are actually, the world that we're actually in.
So it's safe to call it a simulation then. If someone were to say, David, are we living in a simulation? You 100%. Would say 100%.
100%. And funnily enough, when I first went public on this, I was looking around to find anyone who, certainly in the public eye, was talking about this. And I basically only found one person. It was a guy called Nick Bostrom, Professor Nick Bostrom at Oxford University was then, who was talking about the fact that this could be a simulated reality. I see it in a very different way to what he does, but at least the theme of the simulation was there. But what has happened since, from about 2016, is more and more mainstream scientists have started to come out and say, well, it actually does look like it's a simulation. I mean, in the books, I explain all the evidence for it, which is legion, actually, in the books like the Roadmap. And more and more people, mainstream scientists and academics, have started to come out and say this. There was, I remember saying in the early 1990s that I felt this was a simulation, and that the level that we operate at, because it's a multi-level simulation, the level that we operate at, its limit is basically the speed of light. That's why the speed of light appears to be the fastest speed, but absolutely isn't. You go beyond this material reality, the speed of light is pedestrian. And then in April 2021, there was an article in Scientific American by a guy, an academic, and he said he'd concluded that this was a simulation, and the limit of the simulation was the speed of light. I say there's many other levels of it, actually, but and he was relating, I think rightly, to the fact that the speed of light is akin to the limit of the computer power of the simulation, I would say, at this level, and that is that's what the speed of light really is. And it's interesting. I was saying in the early 1990s that I felt that the laws of physics were actually computer codes akin to those that create virtual reality simulation games. So you've got the creators, and they write in to their game various rules, laws, and limits of what is possible. And I say that those laws, limits written by the game creators are akin to our laws of physics. Our laws of physics are actually computer coding. And it's interesting that when people have these near-death experiences, when the body briefly dies and they then gets revived, their experience in between, and there's millions of these experiences. I've watched and read endless of them in my research, with incredible common themes, by the way. The one thing that they say, the many common things they say, but one of them is that when they leave the body, they're in a realm with a completely different law of physics than this one. And what's possible there is very different to what's possible here. That's because this level of the simulation is encoded with these codes, which are what we call the laws of physics. And so you've got this non-human force in this astral dimension that is using this global cult to manipulate human society as it wishes. And there's a reason why they've created this simulation, which I'm sure we'll get into.
I was just about to ask you, what's their motivation for this? And then what sort of agency do we have? Is it to expand our consciousness, to be aware of this limit?
Once you do that, see, when I say the whole foundation of this is to control perception, I mean control perception on every level, from the perception of the reality that we're experiencing right across the board. Every aspect of perception they wish to control, and really they have to control to keep us in check, because they're relatively few compared with the billions of humans. So when I was to give you go into why create this simulation, and we can go into how it works as well. But in the early 1990s, when I was uncovering this cult, I realized that rich and famous people, many who were on the news constantly, were taking part in Satanism, in satanic ritual, in human sacrifice ritual. And you're going, what? Why? What's the game? And not just Satanism, but also pedophilia, because those two are connected actually by the same thing. And then I've met Satanists and former Satanists and people who've observed the rituals against their will as well, all over the world, from the 1990s onwards and onwards and onwards. And wherever you talk to them in the world, they talk about the same thing. It's that these people who are doing these satanic rituals, and the whole foundation of this global cult is based on Satanism and pedophilia, they are actually interacting with their gods as they perceive them. Actually a bunch of prats, but they perceive them as gods. They're masters, if you like. And then I thought, okay, and I got detail on that, which I put in the books, but then I thought, well, they've been doing this all along, haven't they? I mean, look at the ancient world, and they were sacrificing people to the gods as a gift to the gods.
Right.
And then
right.
again, the question: what do the gods get out of it? Then, what's the gift that they're giving them? And what happened is that in ancient societies, it was acceptable. It was part of the life that you sacrificed young virgins to the gods. What's that code for? Children. And that was all part of their life. And then as humanity matured, they stopped all that, and it went underground, and that's where it is now. All this Satanism goes on in secret, comes up every now and again to the surface, and then they bang the hammer down to cover it up. But it's the absolute foundation of this whole cult network. So, what was the gift to the gods?
Right.
And then through many other sources, I came to this conclusion. And one of the sources was a guy called Robert Monroe. Robert Monroe was a kind of a media executive at one point, but he had this gift of being able to project his consciousness into this astral dimension and experience it and see it. And he became very skilled at this. He wrote a series of books about it. And it got the American military got so interested in what he was doing that they started a project called the Gateway Project, Gateway Process, it was called, to study this astral projection, as it's called. And they got other people together who had this gift, and they did this study, and the CIA declassified the report on it by the guy who ran it for the US military some years ago. And when you look at what I've been saying, is that this reptilian force, it's not only reptilian, by the way, but that seems to be a dominant part of it, is operating in this astral dimension. Well, what happened in the Gateway process, this US military operation, is that the participants saw so many reptilian entities in the astral dimension when they were projecting that they gave them, in the Gateway Project, a collective name. They called them the alligators. Oh, I've seen some more alligators, sort of stuff. And what Robert Monroe was saying he learned in his astral projections, and I've had this from many other sources as well, is that these entities, these astral entities, are feeding off low vibrational human energy. And
wow. So that's the gift.
That's the gift that comes in the satanic rituals, but it's also the gift that the whole of society is set up to produce. Now, this will explain a lot about why the world is as it is. First of all, it's not just any human energy that these entities absorb, because they are themselves in a low vibrational state. It's higher vibrational state than the human world, but in the astral world, they're still in a low vibrational state. And thus, if they're going to absorb this human energy, which Robert Monroe called loosh, the name he gave to it, then it has to be within the frequency band that they are. And that frequency band relates to low vibrational human thought and emotion. So it's well known in mainstream science that every time we think and feel emotion, we are generating a frequency. And that frequency relates to the nature of the thought or the emotion. So joy, love, harmony, peace, appreciation, respect. These are all high vibrational energies generated by states of mental and emotional being that relate to those emotions, those thoughts. This force cannot absorb that. What it can absorb is low vibrational energy created by fear, anxiety, depression, war, other conflict, regret, hatred, remorse, and resentment. All these low vibrational emotional energies, they can absorb them. So what you have is this global cult within our reality manipulating human experience. That's why we have all these bloody wars, to generate in the population low vibrational energy based on those mental and emotional states. And these entities are feeding off that. And so in the Matrix movie, which may have been apparent fiction, but there was a heck of a lot of things in there that were actually what's happening. And you had the Morpheus character, and he held up a battery, and he said, the Matrix, the simulation, is a computer-generated dream world built to turn humans into this, a battery. And that was a profound statement of truth within apparently fictional movie. So this force, both the global cult and its masters in the astral dimension, have absolutely no interest whatsoever in a world of love and peace and harmony and respect and joy. They have no interest in that, because that's not their energetic source. The low vibrational emotions are. So that's what the kind of world we live in overwhelmingly. So then we come back to these satanic rituals. What are the gifts to the gods? Well, they put the sacrificial victim through a process to generate maximum terror. I don't suppose they have to try very hard given the circumstances. Maximum terror. Imagine you're a kid, oh dear. And what's happening is, if I look at someone and they're in a very extreme emotional state, I will see in their facial expression and their body language that they're in an emotional state. What I won't see, because it's outside of visible light, is the energy, the frequencies they're giving off that relate to that state. Because that energy is in the frequency band of the astral dimension. So when these sacrificial rituals are happening, these entities oversee from the astral dimension the ritual, and they're feeding off this incredibly powerful and intense low vibrational energy called terror. And that's the gift to the gods. And at the same time, these Satanists within our human reality, they drink the blood of the sacrificial victim. And as people have told me who've witnessed this, they get high on it. It's like a drug to them, a massive high. Why? Because states of extreme terror release into the blood an adrenaline. And it's that adrenaline that they get high on. And that adrenaline brings us to adrenochrome. That's what adrenochrome is. It's blood laced with this adrenaline, which these people are literally addicted to. And when I was looking at these ancient societies that were doing this sacrificial stuff in the open, I realized, I write about this in the roadmap, that although we hear about the pantheons of gods, like the Greek pantheon and the Egyptian pantheon and the Roman pantheon, actually these pantheons of gods can be found all over the ancient world, in all these ancient societies. In fact, these pantheons still exist in the belief system of Hinduism. And you then start to realize that although they have different languages and different cultures, so they call these gods different things, different names, they're actually the same gods. The gods, bunch of prats, that the elite today are doing their sacrificial rituals to are the same entities that they gave them to in the ancient world, because the timeline of the astral is completely different to this one, and so you start to put these things together, and you realize that the whole thing is basically founded on creating constant events to put people in low vibrational states, which then can be fed off, and that these satanic rituals are also another form of very concentrated production of this low vibrational energy. Wow. And you start to see why the world is as it is. They have no interest in a world of love, a world of joy, a world of harmony, none whatsoever. No, that's not lunch. Start another war. And that's why, if you look through what we call history, there's a lot more to know about that. We've had this constant conflict, constant war, constant deprivation, constant suffering among vast tracts of humanity. I mean, you look at the First World War, you look at the Second World War. It's not just the people taking part, and death itself as a frequency of vibration. It's all the people back home worried if their loved one will return or not. Imagine the loosh, the low vibrational energy that will have been created in Gaza since October the 7th. And this is happening all around the world. And I'm banned from 30 European countries and Australia now, and many others if I try to get in there. But before that, I traveled really widely around the world since 1990. And you see the vast numbers of people, the great majority of people actually, are living very challenging lives, trying to survive another day, another month, or whatever, in terrible circumstances. And so there's all this challenge, emotion, a mental response energy that's basically turned the earth into a vast battery, producing energy for these entities to absorb. And it's one of the things, funnily enough, that I've written about over the years, and I do in the roadmap as part of that whole putting the dots together, is reincarnation. And this gateway process of the US military kind of came to the conclusion in its report that reincarnation is actually real, because what's reincarnating is not the body, it's a consciousness. It's a state of awareness, a state of consciousness. Some people call it the soul, although that's only one level of it. And so you have this situation where, or certainly questioned in my mind, is when you leave the body, like in a near-death experience, or you leave permanently, what happens then? Are you then out of the simulation, out of the loosh production machine? Because if you were, because of what I just said about the challenging lives that so many people have, the great majority, If you left the body at the end of an experience of human, surely you would say, well, I'm not going back there.
Right.
Stop that for a game of soldiers. That's horrible. I'm off.
Right. You gave me the experience of being a paraplegic for the last 60 years. Why would I want to go back to that again?
Exactly. So then I really got into this whole what the hell is that all about? And again, I write in the books in terms of the detail, but basically, what you have is another level of this simulation, which is the astral dimension. And the idea is that when consciousness leaves the body, it enters this astral dimension, okay, but they don't want you going any further, because if you do, you're out of their control and thus out of their loosh machine. They want you to reincarnate back into this reality over and over again. So it's like a self-perpetuating machine. And I set out in the books in detail how this seems to work, talking to people who've got memories and have experienced it and all that stuff. And that is that when you enter this astral dimension and you see the light or the tunnel with a light at the end, you think you're in some form of heaven, because compared with what you've just experienced, it seems to be. But there is a whole system, which ultimately this simulation is run by AI, a level of AI that makes human AI currently even look like the Stone Age. And you go on this, what the Buddhists call wheel of samsara, where you basically come out of the body, you go through a process and you come back in. And so they've set up this multi-level simulation system so that it's self-perpetuating. And the reason consciousness comes back in is because what it learns in its astral state is that it's got lessons to learn, and it must go back to pay back its karma.
We hear this in the teachings of, or the research I've read, Journey of Souls, Michael Newton's books on reincarnation, and it's a common theme throughout all of the regression hypnosis that he does in his work. Thousands of people who are totally unrelated all say the same thing, that once they've left the body and they're in this astral state, they've sort of chosen to come back to fix or work on something that heretofore was a deficiency in the previous life.
Yeah. And basically, it's a load of old crap. And I tell you what I've noticed. I can come to something else I've noticed in a second, which relates to it. But what I've noticed is the relationship between humans in the human realm and to authority mirrors the relationship of consciousness, soul, if you like, in the astral in relation to authority. So people look to authority in the human world to tell them what to think and to tell them what to do. And overwhelmingly, they'll get their information from those sources, and they'll be guided by those sources. Oh, hello, doctor, I'm not very well. Please save me, doctor, and all these different institutions of authority. And then when they leave the body, this is a fascinating thing to me, because one of the common themes of a near-death experience is when they leave the body, they say, it was amazing. I've never experienced anything like it. And then you say, well, you believe in reincarnation though now? Oh, yeah, reincarnation, yeah. So you must have experienced it lots of times then. So why have you never experienced it like this before? You must have done. And so that was my question. Well, how does that work then? And then I've come across information and talked to people who have a memory. They're not that many in number, but the common themes are very compelling. They have a memory of the incarnation process. They have a memory of the pre-incarnation process in the astral when they're about to come back, and they then have a memory of actually coming into the body. And what they talk about is that as you come in, you go through some sort of very powerful electromagnetic field that wipes your memory. Now, there are people, young kids mostly, that do remember previous lives in this reality, but they're comparatively few. And seems by about the age of 7, 8, it kind of disappears. But they do have memories, and they are absolutely phenomenally detailed, a lot of them. There's a guy I quote in my books, a guy called Stevenson, who was a psychiatrist, psychologist, and he set out to basically trash the idea that reincarnation was real through these kids who were describing previous lives, small kids. And what he did is noted what they said in detail about where they were in this previous life and what the background was and who was around them and what have you. And then he'd check it out, because a lot of them, the people involved, were still around, still alive. And he became so amazed by the accuracy of these kids and what they were saying to what he was checking out, even in another country or another town where they'd never been, that he realized that reincarnation was real. I tell you one quick story I tell in one of the books. There was this lad who said that he was formerly married to this woman who was much older by now, obviously, but he was a kid. And he said, "Oh, I was married to this woman, and this is where I swear I lived." And these kids are describing houses in other places, sometimes other countries, and they're describing how they're laid out, what the rooms are, etc. And they never ever been there. They're only little kids. And so Stevenson took this guy this kid to this home of where he said he was married to the woman. And Stevenson was saying, the funny thing was, the kid was talking to the wife as if he was still a wife. She was still a wife.
Wow.
When she's a much older woman and he's a little kid. And it came to the point where they said to him, the family, well, if you say you were, previously one of us, where's your will? Because we could never find your will. And the kid went to, I think it was in the kitchen, to a floorboard and pointed at a floorboard. They took the floorboard up and there was the will. And so this guy, Stevenson, he wrote thousands of case studies of these people. So, but what they say is that when they come in, overwhelmingly, they pass through some kind of really powerful electromagnetic field. It wipes their memory, apart from the few. And so they go through a human life in a like blank sheet of paper state. They have no idea where they've come from. They have no idea where they're going. They have no idea why they're here. And so when they leave the body, and we can come to what death is in a second, when they leave the body, they're still in that mind wipe state. So they experience this astral dimension after they leave the body. And to them, they're experiencing it for the first time. I've never experienced anything like it. And you go up the tunnel. Obviously, if you're a Christian, you might see Jesus. If you're a Muslim, you might see another religious hero, etc., etc. You might see loved ones and all the stuff I talk about in the books, how they are projections. They're not real. It's all AI, basically, a level of AI that we can't comprehend even now. Wow. And they go up the tunnel still in this mind wipe state. And then what happens with near-death experiences is that they are told it's not your time, you've got to go back. And it's so lovely at that point that often they say, well, I don't want to go back. Oh, no, you've got to go back. You've got lessons to learn and all that stuff. What they don't do is pass the threshold into the level of reality that's beyond that point of you've got to go back. So basically, none of these near-death experiences cross that threshold and realize what's beyond it. And so when you go beyond it, well, bang, you're on the wheel of samsara and you're back. And the question of death is very relevant because people are so frightened of it. What is death? We are consciousness vibrating far quicker than this reality. So to interact with it, we need a body. This body is a biological computer. And it's, I was saying another thing earlier that is intriguing to me, is that this explosion, this AI computer explosion in the human world that we've had in recent times, it's actually a technological mirror of how we experience reality, of what this reality is. Just another level of it, it's another technological level. And so I'm sitting in front of a computer now. If there was Wi-Fi in this room, then where is it? You can't see it. It's outside of visible light. You can't see it.
Right.
And if you said to someone who didn't know anything about Wi-Fi and knew nothing about computers, that there is a whole collective global reality in this room. And if you get a bit of kit called a computer, you can lock into it, it will lock into it, and it will put that reality on the screen in a completely different form to how it exists in the Wi-Fi field. Then if people didn't know about computers and Wi-Fi, they'd say you were mad. They'd say, what are you talking about? What Wi-Fi? I can't see it. And all these things that they say. But if you said to people now, in this room, there's a Wi-Fi field and it's a collective reality called the internet, and you can tap into it anywhere in the world if you've got a bit of kit, a computer to tap into it. People would go, oh yeah, I know about that Wi-Fi computers. Yeah, of course I know about that. Everyone knows about that. Now, the only difference, this is a really important point, the only difference between you're mad, mate, I can't see it, what are you talking about? And yeah, I know about that. The only difference is knowledge of that existence. And if you can therefore squeeze knowledge and squeeze the sense of the possible, you squeeze perception into the myopia that you need to control the great mass of people. So what's happening is the computer is locking in to the Wi-Fi field, and it's putting that field onto the screen in a totally different form to what it exists in the field. Okay, where is the computer doing that? It's doing it inside the computer. We're just observing it from the outside. It's all happening inside the computer. So then you come to how we interact with this reality, this simulation. There you go. The human body is a biological computer. And, you know, people think that biological is natural and technological is human made. Okay. But unless you have something, and we don't, that is unimpeachably natural, you have nothing to compare the natural to. And I'll tell you from my own research over the years, is that this cult treats the biological as a form of technology, not natural. And so what you have is a body, and it's interacting with the matrix. What is the matrix? It's an information field. It's like a Wi-Fi field. It mirrors it. And so you're tapping in, and it's an interactive. So you're affecting the field as the field is affecting you. As you wake up, you affect the field. That's another reason they don't want you to wake up. So we're interacting with it through the five senses. Now, this is mainstream science. How does the five senses work? They pick up frequency information. They turn it into electrical information. They communicate the electrical information to the brain, and different parts of the brain specialize in decoding different senses. And then it puts together from all that information a sense of reality. And if people say, well, we all see the same reality, well, we don't. We all see the same background, basic reality, but what we make of it and how we interact with it is completely different, depending on your state of perception, your state of being. But what I'm saying is that the world that appears, I'll grant you it does, appears to be out here, is all happening in here, just as it's happening inside the computer. There is no external world. It's happening in here, and the world is holographic. This is creating a holographic world simulation, exactly the same as a virtual reality game. So if you go on the internet to a video platform, and you go to like a compilation of people going crazy with headsets on, then you'll see how amazingly easy it is to control human perception. Because what is the video game using to give you this fake reality of a headset and the gloves and the audio and everything? It's using the five senses. It's using the same five senses. It's overriding them. It's overriding them with another level of information. And what you see in these compilations is they put the headset on, and they suddenly go absolutely bloody crazy. They're falling off the chair. They're running. They're screaming. They're running away, because almost in an instant they put the headset on, and the information is being communicated to their brain to override, quote, normal reality, and they're completely their perceptions are completely taken over.
Right.
Now imagine, because this body is a headset, in effect, it's a biological computer. And if people think, well, that's a bit strange, that's a bit far-fetched, well, hold on a minute. Unless you're out of breath when you become conscious of it, do you remember breathing? Do you think of breathing? Do you think all the time, I must breathe, I must breathe, I must breathe, I must breathe? No, only when you've got a bit of a problem might you think that, but overwhelmingly you're breathing.
Or your heart to beat.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think, okay, I must concentrate now because I've got to process this food. I've got to get this food down. And no, it just does it. It's a computer, and it's a biological computer, a very, very advanced biological computer, and we are interacting with the matrix, an information field, which is what some scientists are now coming to the conclusion it is. I was talking about this in the early 2000s. And we are living in a reality we think is outside of us, but actually it's in here. And if you put on these really advanced computer games now, these headsets, etc., you know, you've got arms, haven't you? Which you think
Yeah.
are arms. You think of your hands. Why?
Right.
Because the perceptions can be overridden by information. So when I'm talking about the five senses, they're picking up frequency information, electrical information to the brain, blah blah blah. The ears are a classic, but they all work like this. The ears are picking up sound waves, frequencies. They turn it into electrical information, send it to the brain. So when I'm talking now, I'm not passing words between us. I'm passing frequencies. My vocal cords are generating a frequency field, which we call words. And that's what the ears pick up, that frequency field. They then pass it to the brain in the form of electrical signals. And the brain decodes the frequency or the electrical information into the words we think we are hearing. And that's how the communication's gone. Everything is frequency. It's like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, then think of frequency and vibration. Exactly. We live in this ocean of frequencies. Now, if you're introducing 5G towers, 6G towers to come, being pushed by Trump in the last couple of weeks or so,
Right.
And you've got Musk and Bezos and other satellites beaming electromagnetic fields at you, thousands of them and more to come, then we're not just in a field of an ocean of, for want of a word, natural interaction of frequencies. We've had this massive introduction of technologically generated frequencies. And therefore, it's imposing and impacting upon the human mind, human perception. In the roadmap, I quote a whistleblower from China. This is some years ago he spoke, who said that the Chinese are already basically dictating thought through electromagnetic fields. Because what is the brain? It is processing information electrically and electromagnetically. And if you can get access to that field, you can impact what it thinks and how it processes that information. And in terms of what's happening now with the whole AI thing, it's that they're creating a massive global electromagnetic field through the towers, but massively from the low orbit satellites of people like Musk and SpaceX, through which they are creating a hive mind to dictate global perception. And although the Chinese, this guy said, are doing it directly, electromagnetic field to electromagnetic field, if you've got kit like nano stuff in the body that operates as a receiver of this hive mind electromagnetic field, then it's even more powerful. And that, for me, is what the COVID fake vaccine was all about. It was putting this nanotech into people, which is self-replicating. I've been in contact since then with many scientists and groups around the world that have been studying this and looking through electron microscopes at the self-replicating nanotechnology building systems in the body. And one of the things they found, it was a group in Spain called La Quinta Columna, which means fifth column in English. And they came out quite early when the fake vaccines started rolling out and said there's something in the vials called graphene oxide. Now, graphene oxide is a relatively new, at least publicly new, substance. And it has two particular qualities, there's many others too, that suit the cult. One is it amplifies electromagnetic fields. So if you've got graphene oxide in the body, it will amplify the effect on the body of an electromagnetic field that you come into contact with. And the other thing is it's a superconductor of electricity. And you have the brain processing information electrically. And if you can interfere with that, then you're dictating perception and you're stopping the brain coming to its natural, if you like, natural conclusions of how it sees the world or how it sees a situation. And what they, many people have explained this, how they use this gel to trick the immune system into allowing this crap into the body, and then it starts forming systems. And it also, it is said by these people who studied it, it's entering the brain through the blood-brain barrier, and which should protect the brain from external foreign bodies. And as a result, it's getting in the brain, and it's changing the way that people process information. And this nanotechnology is, on one level, it's the receiver system of the hive mind, which, if you have an electromagnetic field, you can pass frequencies through it. And what are frequencies? They're information. That's, I mean, we have television and radio, all this stuff, because frequency carries information through electromagnetic fields. And the idea is that this nanotechnology receives it, and then the body processes it into a state of reality. And so, you know, people might understand why I have been screaming from the rooftops that this is the game. This is where we're heading. Kurzweil's talking about this happening by 2030. It's already happening. And all this diversion stuff that Trump's involved in, although there are other reasons for that as well, but it's a massive diversion. It's getting you to look that way while actually the real deal's going on here.
You know, you think about some of the science fiction over the years, and just as you were talking about keeping us in this state of entropy where everyone's fighting and the chaos. You can go back to the 1960s. There was a Star Trek episode in the original series called Day of the Dove, where there was like this non-corporeal entity that was feeding off of the negative energy of the Federation and the Klingons by keeping them in a perpetual state of war. There's been, you know, so many examples of this, right? And to keep us in this constant state of chaos in order to feed this beast. Didn't you believe the AI piece of this further amplifies that? It makes it even more.
Yeah. Well, basically, AI becomes louche on tap. You don't have to manipulate information to, and even events to get people into a low vibrational state. You just make sure they are, because AI is doing their thinking for them. And just
so you don't have to rely on false flags and put a massive information war together. You can rely on just turning on the spigot.
Yeah, that's the game, and this is where they want to go. But one very, very quick thing I need to mention is, like I said earlier, what is death? Okay, so the consciousness enters the body for a human life. Then the body, as I have written in the books, is actually a program. It's a perceptual program. Okay, like I said earlier, the body is running itself all the time because it's a program. It's a computer program. It's a biological computer. Is it too much of a stretch, therefore, to think that also encoded in this program are perceptual programs? And we can override them but only if we open our minds to expansion of consciousness, because then consciousness is so powerful, it can override the program that's thinking for you even now and dictating emotional response. We have things like the fight or flight response. These are all part of the program and the response program. So another reason they don't want people to expand their awareness and open their minds is because it overrides the program. Suddenly, the impulses of the program are overridden.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How do you, David Icke, fit into this then? Because you have managed to override this program in a lot of ways, almost, I think, in many ways. Are you a glitch in the matrix then? Because you've expanded your consciousness to such a degree that you see all of these rungs of the ladder, and they certainly don't want more of you, right?
But every person who, or every consciousness that expands into the greater reality is a glitch in the matrix. Yeah. That's what they're terrified of. They're terrified of the whole Neo character in the Matrix movies was like a glitch in the matrix. Big expansion of awareness of actually what the game is and what this reality is. That alone kind of is massively destructive for the matrix itself. And so this is what we call awakening. And that's why I've been, I think, a little frustrated, to say the least, is that I've seen, in many ways, present company accepted, by the way, I've seen the mainstream of the alternative media, as all the mainstreamers have come in since COVID, squeezing the sense of reality into politics and corporations and banking and all this stuff. And what we need to do is continue to expand our awareness beyond that, because that has gone from there to there. We need to go much deeper into our expansion of awareness, because then we override the program. We don't react the way the program would normally react. Now, if you just sit quietly and you can listen to your thoughts, you can do it. Just sit quietly. Just listen to your thoughts. Just observe your thoughts. If she said this to me, I'd say that to her. And that woman in 1963, she was the one that responsible for my life. And you this chatter, this constant chatter going on, you can observe it.
Eckhart Tolle said in, I think, The Power of Now or The New Earth, he wrote about it years ago. He said, if you've ever seen a crazy person walking on the street, just sort of chattering out loud, making nonsense, he's like, we're no different than that person, because we're just doing it quietly in our own brains. We're just nonstop chattering in our brains, but this so-called crazy person is doing it out loud on the street.
Yeah. So when you observe your own thoughts and you observe that chatter, who's doing the observing? What's the chatter? It's not you. You're observing it. What is it? The chatter is the program. The observer is consciousness beyond the program. And if we can impact the perceptions of consciousness on the body, we can break the program of the body, including many things that happen to the body that we can override. You know, I was told in, when was I? I was 21. 21, maybe it was a bit earlier, actually, when I was told this. And I had rheumatoid arthritis. I was a professional footballer. And the doctors said, you can't play again. Yeah, this was about when I was 19. You can't play again. It's impossible. And oh, by the way, you could be in a wheelchair in your 30s with this. And I thought, no, I won't. No, I bloody won't. And they gave me, I think it was called Indesid. It was a big jar of bloody pills, right? So it'll take these 3 a day. And I said, well, will that get rid of the arthritis? Oh, no, but it will take the pain away. I said, well, you can stick them then. I don't want them. I'll override it. I didn't say that because I wasn't aware of the way things worked in those days, but I thought, no, I'm not having it. So I played for another 2 years with rheumatoid arthritis, professional football, ludicrous, you think. And then my career ended when I was 21, and the arthritis was progressing, and it got to the point where it was really, really bad, and I could hardly function. I was a television presenter at the time. It was very difficult sometimes. And then it reached a real extreme point where I'm going on a trip to India to see a friend of mine, and I'd never been to India before. And I'm at a terminal at Heathrow Airport in London, and the arthritis is so bad, I'm having to shuffle my feet along the ground because I can't walk. And I sat in the departure lounge until the last person was going on, so that I didn't have to stand. It was a nightmare. So I then get to India, and then I thought, hold on a minute. By this time, I was into all this stuff. I thought, you're saying that mind consciousness can override the body program? Yeah, okay. Well, bloody do it then.
Right.
And I'm now 73. I've got this hand is like that. It's been like that since way back. But the rest of me, fine.
So you can walk fine.
I play football with my grandkids.
Wow.
I walk fine. And at this time, I should be wizened away with arthritis completely taking over my body. I'm not having it. My consciousness is more powerful than this program, and we can do this. But we're not told any of this stuff because they want the body program to prevail. And it's my view that if you do not open your mind to consciousness, and come to how that works in a minute, then the body program is running your life. It's your thoughts. It's your emotional responses. That's why people are so bloody predictable, because the body program is predictable. But if you can open your mind to consciousness, you can override the program, and it ceases to dictate your life. You start dictating your life from a much more expansive state of being. So, again, I said earlier that things are much simpler than they're portrayed. In the early days of the 1990s, the only people groups that would put me on and listen to me, what I had to say at all, and even that was, in the back room at the end of the evening, was what was then called the New Age. And as a result of speaking at some of these conferences in the 1990s, I saw the guru figures of the New Age, and I'd see them getting massive audiences, thousands of people, and I would listen to them and all this stuff, and it all sounded terribly complicated. Like you have to go on a quest or drink green tea or something, and you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do the other. And I'm thinking, I can't believe it's that bloody complicated. And this is my conclusion. To expand your consciousness into the beyond the simulation realm of knowledge, which is when you see it, oh my God, so that's what's going on then. All you need to do is redefine your self-identity. If you self-identify with being human, not as an experience, that's what it is, but as an I, you enter the realm of severe limitation, of I can't, of it's not possible. You enter the self-identity dictated by the labels of a human life, income bracket, color, race, religion, all these things. You are operating in the matrix, in the simulation, and you are of the simulation. And therefore, the simulation is dictating your entire sense of reality. However, when you self-identify not as a human, that's an experience, but as the consciousness, ultimately at the infinite expansion of consciousness, you self-identify with that, you are expanding your self-identity from little me, I've got no power, to I have the power of infinity if I want to tap into it. And that self-identity expansion automatically expands your consciousness deeper and deeper and deeper into the infinite field, where you start accessing expansion of insight, of knowledge, of awareness. That's why the belief systems, they don't care what we have as long as they're rigid and unquestioning. That's why they want us in this situation, because we're not going to go there. What are you? Oh, as long as I believe in Jesus, I'll go to heaven. Yeah, you'll go into the astral and you'll be back here, mate. Expand your awareness by expanding your self-identity. And suddenly the world is completely different, because you are completely different. You're no longer little me. You are increasingly, as you expand, you are infinite me. And you see things that you never saw before. You see how it all fits together in a way you never saw before. But all the pressure is to remain in the box. What will people think of me if I say this? Oh, I better not say it then. Sod that for a game of soldiers. Have some of this, mate.
Yeah. No, many things you've said there, so powerful. And I love what you're saying about people who've maybe had this awareness over the past few years since COVID, and they're thinking like the banking cabal, they're thinking, Klaus Schwab, they're thinking in sort of smaller, yes, more expanded, but they're still thinking within this narrow framework, and we need to go much bigger. When you talk about death, then, I guess maybe the final question then is, you talk about that Buddhist wheel of samsara, like in going back into the mix again, if you don't break that. If you do expand your consciousness to this level that you're talking about, are you able to break free of that wheel?
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
And then what happens? I guess that's the ultimate question then.
Okay. This simulation, whether it's the human level of material density, illusory material density. I mean, Einstein realized that there's no such thing as the material world. It's just energy condensed to a slow vibration. A slow vibration within what? Within visible light. I'm looking around this room now, and I can see a couple of lights. I can see a computer and a microphone and a wall and a door. And what I can see is form. What is form? It's energy that has been condensed into a vibration slow enough for me to see it with invisible light. Between the form appears to be empty space. It ain't empty space. It's infinity, but it's outside of visible light, which is why it seems to be empty. And so we are living in this illusion, and the illusion is designed to keep us, whether it's in the human world or in the astral world, within the frequency band of the simulation. So again, every time we think and feel emotion, perceive, we are generating energy. And that energy is dictating our energetic field and its nature. So when someone is in a high vibrational state, they might say something like, "Oh, I feel so light today." And the reason they say they feel light is because their emotional mental state is generating high frequencies, and they are vibrating their energetic field into a higher frequency state, which is why they feel lighter, because it's faster and it's more ethereal, if you like. And then you've got people who say, "I feel so heavy today. Oh, got the weight of the world on my shoulders." That emotional state is sending out low vibrational, low frequencies, which are having the effect on your energetic field of making it far more dense, so we feel heavy. Now, so our perceptions, our self-identity is a frequency field which we are generating. The idea of this simulation and its non-human manipulators, bunch of prats, as I said, is to keep both in this material world and in this astral dimension, to keep the target population, if you like, vibrating, perceiving, thus vibrating within the limits of the simulation. Some people call it the ring past not, or the Ouroboros, as some groups have called it over the centuries. It's a vibrational limit, and if you're within it, then you're on the wheel of samsara. Because what do the Buddhists say?
Joy or sadness,
Yeah,
you're still within that range.
Yeah, you're still within that range. But the thing is that the Buddhists talk about the fact that to break, and I've got a lot of questions about Buddhism as well, but on this I'm in total agreement. They're saying that you to escape the wheel of samsara, you need to reach a state of, quote, enlightenment. What does that mean? A state of awareness, a state of expanded awareness, where your field is vibrating so quickly that no way can this simulation field keep you within itself. You're straight through it. It's like it doesn't exist. This limit of the simulation doesn't exist, because it's like a radio station passing through another radio station. The one radio station is of a completely different wavelength. The other radio station can't stop it. And this is why they want to keep us in ignorance, both in the human world and in the astral soul world, to keep us in ignorance, to keep us within the limits of the simulation. And if we say, sod that for a game of soldiers, I am all that is, has been, and ever can be, having a brief human experience. I will decide where I go from here and what I do, not a bunch of prats who are seeking to entrap me. And no way, I can't be entrapped unless I believe I can be entrapped. Bang, gone, out of here. And that's their worst nightmare, because as consciousness leaves the simulation, there's less and less and less loosh available to feed these psychopathic, very strange entities.
I guess I'll get you out of here on this, David. And you've been so gracious with your time. What don't you know yet?
What don't I know yet? Well, it's like Socrates in ancient Greece is supposed to have said, wisdom is knowing how little we know. So massive amounts I don't know. massive amounts.
I guess where are some of the blind spots that you feel in your vast knowledge that you're still deeply exploring? Do you feel like a white belt in karate in any certain area?
Understanding the nature of reality beyond the simulation. You can get glimpses of it. You can get sometimes experiences of it, but we're talking about something that is infinite in nature, and thus it's basically forever. That's what we're experiencing. We're experiencing forever. So beyond the simulation, which we are immediately aware of, what lies beyond that? Well, forever does. Infinite possibility. See, what I'm saying that what we call God is, and this brings us back to religion. One of the things that I focus on in part of the roadmap is religion. About 5 chapters of the 28 are on religion and its impact upon human perception and what religion is, and what is this God that people are worshipping through religion. Because there's this great line, very true, energy flows where attention goes. What you focus upon, you put your energy into. So if your focus, and worship is a very powerful level of attention. If you're worshiping something that actually is not what you think you're worshiping, it's a fake God masquerading as the loving God, masquerading as the loving God. Don't read the Old Testament then you're focusing your attention on that, and thus you're making an energetic connection with it. Therefore, it can control your energy. But if you look beyond that, beyond the simulation, for me, what this God is, I don't use the word God, but I call it the infinite. It is all possibility, all potential, waiting to manifest. And we therefore have an infinity of choices of what to manifest. What we have got caught in is one creation, one possibility, which is entrapment. And we don't have to stay here unless we believe in it, and we believe that we are therefore entrapped and there's nothing we can do. That's what they want. That works at all levels. Look at what I said earlier about Elon Musk. Human AI fusion is inevitable. We can't stop it then. Well, you're living with an infinite possibility. Of course, you can stop anything. You can create anything. You can stop anything. You can do anything you bloody like, but only if you know that you can. If you don't, you'll be limited by the limits of your perception of what is possible. It's like there's a guy, I think it was called Schopenhauer, who said something, words to the effect of people basically misunderstand the limits of possibility with the limits of their own mind. The limits of possibility compared with the limits of the sense of the possible. They're not the same. If you talk to most human beings about the limit of possibility, then it's going to be here somewhere. But when you expand your awareness into the realms of of infinity beyond the simulation, you realize that anything becomes possible, because you're dealing with all possibility. When people talk about God being all that is, has been, and ever can be, and you think, well, that's impossible. What the human mind thinks is that's impossible. Nothing can be all that is, has been, and ever can be, because they think in terms of time, which is another illusion, by the way, which can be easily explained. But what is all that is, has been, and ever can be? What is it saying? All possibility. And if you're dealing with a realm of all possibility, you're dealing with all that is, all that has been, and all that can be, because all those are an expression of all possibility. And that's what we're living in. We're living in an infinity of all possibility. And what the simulation and its creators have done is put us in a box that limits our sense of the possible. And that's the only way that the few can control the many.
Wow. The new documentary that David is a part of is called The Human Antenna, which covers a lot of this AI fusion. So I encourage people to, we'll have it linked up for people to go and watch that, but also read David's newest book called The Roadmap. Dive through all of his teachings, because I think once you go down this rabbit hole, you're never going back. You're never going back. And you can start to see all of these news stories, whether it's Trump in Greenland and Minnesota and all of these things. Once you understand that there's a higher level at play here, all of those things start to fall apart. It's really powerful. So I just want to thank you for expanding the consciousness of all of us, David, and all of your incredible work over the years, and your graciousness with your time tonight to be able to sit and talk with us. I really thank you.
You know, when you spent the last 36 years trying to get information out, it's no problem finding the time to talk to people like you, I tell you.
Well, it's been my great honor and my great pleasure. So thank you, and I hope I get a chance to sit down with you face to face in the near future. I'll be in the UK over the summer, and I said I would love to sit down and go deep.
That'd be great.
Wonderful, David. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we got a studio in Derby in England, where Iconic.com comes out. That's our media platform, and documentaries, etc., all about reality and everything else. So that would be a good place to do it.
Oh, that would be wonderful. And now that you're back, I guess on YouTube, they've allowed you back, the powers that be. People need to dive in and start watching I think how many videos do you do a week? Is it 1 to 2 per week now?
Well, I do quite a few. I mean, there's well over 1,000 videos on that platform now. A number of which were, of course, coming back. I was away for 5.5 years, banned from YouTube. But on that subject, if I could just mention one thing,
please.
The Iconic.com and the media platform has just released a film called Beneath the Surface, which you can see on my YouTube channel, and it's all about the satanic ritual, pedophilia, mind control, and how all that connects into what's happening in the world. So that's worth watching.
Wonderful. We'll make sure we have Iconic linked up in the description so people can go and watch that film. David, thank you so much again. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Really, really great pleasure to talk to you.
Cheers. Thank you so much.